programming, and those variables can hold a particular kind of value. For example, if we want to store marks of 60 students of my class, in that situation what we can do, we can start storing the values, but if 60 students marks we need to store, then in that situation we require a data structure which can store that, rather than creating 60 different variable for storing those marks. In this situation, what is required, we require a data structure which can store a similar kind of values. Like here this is basically a array of structure. Here this is okay. This is array of books. Like here we are storing n number of books and every element is a book. So we are creating an array of books. Likewise we can have, these are leaves. So this can be treated as array of leaves, array of flowers, array of trees. So I hope that you understand the basic meaning of arrays. Arrays we are using to store a particular type of similar data elements. We are creating a collection of similar data elements. So the basic concept behind arrays, many applications which require data items that have some common characteristic, like the example which we taken earlier, like I want to store marks of my class that is having 60 students. So these 60 student marks need to be stored in a data structure, and all the marks are of same category. So like rather than creating variable for each thing, we can create a collection, a list, a vector of values. So these arrays are basically essential. Like if we want to perform some operation on those values, then array becomes a necessary part. Like we want to sort them in a ascending order. So sorting n variables is typical, and sorting a array of n elements will be easier than that. Like we want to find the standard deviation of values, mode of the values, median of the values. In that situation, the number of elements which we are storing in array becomes easy to handle. So how this kind of data we can store in computers using, like I am discussing this with respect to C programming language. So how such kind of data structure we can create using C. So here, like I want to store characters. So all characters will be stored in the array. Array means every element, the element is stored, like A is stored, then B is stored, they are stored in contiguous memory location. And when these are stored in a vector form, they will be called 1D array, and there will be one index for that. Sometimes we require a data which has two dimensions, like row and column. So the data that we require in the form of row and columns, then we can use 2D array. And sometimes, like there is a possibility that we want to store a data like I want to store some city, temperature and date. So, I want to store a data that in which city, what temperature on which date is there. So, that is requiring a 3D array, 3-dimensional data. So, these things can be used in our programming languages also. Here the arrays are basically an example of a data structure. In C language, we can use these data structure linear. It is a kind of linear data structure which is used to store linear set of values. The array lets you declare and work with a collection of similar kind of data. So, let us have the definition of array. So, here like an array is defined as finite ordered collection of homogeneous data stored in contiguous memory locations. So, let us try to understand the meaning of this definition. Like here we have said that finite. Finite means there will be a fixed size of array. So, that means we have a fixed size of array. It is not like array will be storing infinite values. So, that is not possible in C language. In C language, whenever we will declare, we need to fix the size of array. Second thing is ordered. Ordered, the element is stored at a particular location that have an order, and it will be stored like previous to that element, next there will be another element. So, here will be the location of element in a array will be fixed. So, we have a fixed location of an element that we will use with the help of index. Next thing is collection of homogeneous data. Homogeneous means similar kind of data, like we can have array of characters, we can have array of numbers, we can have array of structure like books, array of books. So, we can have a array, but every element of that array will be of similar type, like we said that array of marks. So, every mark is of same type. So, that is why we have said that arrays are having homogeneous data, and it will be stored in contiguous memory location. So, contiguous means all the array elements will be stored, all the array elements will be stored in the location next to previous one in the memory. So, like here first element, then second element, then third element, and their addresses can also be found in the respect of previous element. So, they are stored like in the memory there are 5 elements are being stored. So, array size is 5. Index is basically to follow order. Index is used to follow order. So, index starts from 0. So, 0 is the first location. In C, index starts with 0. This is also useful, or the researchers has put this starting of index with 0, because with the help of this index we can find out the address of next element. So, in this situation, whenever we will use a formula, then index 0 will be added to the first element. The initial address or the base address of an array is always the address of the first element. So, we need not to add anything, that is why this index is 0. So, we can find the address of first element with the help of base address. Base address, the base address is basically the starting address of our array. Like here this place, like for example there is a possibility that this location is 1001. So, that is the address of base address of array, and the base address or the address of first element is also 1001. So, that is why we start index always with the 0. Like the example which we were discussing earlier, I want to store the marks of students. So, here the type of marks will be float number. Float means that the number having some decimal value also. So, these float will become the type of marks. This is the name of, this is type, this is the name of array, and this is the size of array. So, this is how we can declare a array. In individual array elements, they are distinguished from one another with the value that is assigned to a subscript. Subscript operator is this. So, we put a subscript inside this operator just to uniquely identify one element. Sometimes this subscript is also called index. If array elements contain, like n elements are stored in the array, and the subscript will always be a integer quantity ranging from 0 to n minus 1. So, index will always be a integer value. The size and type of array cannot be changed after its declaration. Like here in this example, we have declared an array like marks, and its size we have given 100. So, what number of bytes will be reserved in the memory? We can find out that size of a float is 4 byte multiplied by 100 such elements. So, 400 bytes will be reserved in the memory, and it cannot be changed throughout the program execution, because it is a static memory allocation. In kind of static memory allocation, we cannot change the size of a data structure during the program. Each array element, like one data item, is referred by specifying the array name followed by one or more subscripts, with each subscript enclosed in square bracket or this subscript operator. Like if I want to refer this marks of a student, so I will write marks 2. So, it will refer to the marks of third student, because index is starting from 0. So, third student marks will be referred with marks 2. The number of subscript determines the dimensionality of the array, or we can say that with the help of these indexes we can find out the dimensionality of array. Like if we are using one index, then it will be 1D array. If we are using 2 indexes, then it will be a 2D array. So, first is used to refer row, and this is used to refer column. the pointers and arrays are closely related because arrays use the pointers internally. We can also say that the pointer array name is the constant pointer. Here in C programming language, the array name refers to a constant pointer. Constant pointer means whose address cannot be changed. So, let me remind you the pointer also. Pointer is what? Pointer is a variable which stores the address of another variable. So, in this situation what is happening, that array name is behaving like a pointer, and that pointer is going to be used internally, or we can also say that array name refers to a constant pointer. That means we cannot change the pointer or the address which it is referring by adding something to the array name. So, that is not possible. In C programming languages, the 1D array are used to store a list of values of same data type, or we can say that single dimensional arrays are used to store a row of values, a list of values, or sometimes we can also say that they form a vector. So, in single dimensional array, data is stored in a linear form and it is called 1D array, linear array, or simply one dimensional array. So, introduction to arrays, let us try to start using it. So, one thing which we have done, that it is a homogeneous data type. All the data item consisting a group to share the name. So, every element of this array is sharing a name X, and they can be uniquely identified with the help of index. So, like this element is being uniquely identified by X0, this element is uniquely identified by X1, and here this is X2. So, this is how we are using these arrays. Last element is 10th element. So, index will be 1 less because we are starting with 0. So, it will be X9. Now, how to define an array? In C programming language, like any other variable, we can define the arrays also. So, we use a storage class. I hope you remember the storage classes. They were auto, extern, register and static. So, these were the storage classes, but they are optional. Optional because if we will not define or we will not declare any storage class, then it will be treated as auto. Like I have written int x 100. So, what is, we have not used any storage class. So, by default it is auto. Then the data type. So, here we can declare data type like this, name of the array. So, that will be the name of the array, and expression which results in integer value. So, we can give it directly also. So, this is how we can declare array. Whenever we will declare, what will happen? it will reserve, like here in this case 4 into 100 bytes will be reserved in the memory. So 400 bytes will be reserved in the memory. In such situation, like some other integer types, integer roll number 60, that may be one different kind of array. So this is how we can declare. There are some other ways of declaring arrays also, like here we have declared array 6 and we have stored some values. We have, so this is what this is basically called declaration cum initialization. So declaration and initialization both we are doing in this situation. If we skip the size, then the number of values which we supplied will decide the size of array. So in this example 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So size will be size will be 6. We can have character array like character student name, and we have given if we want to give a string, so we need to use double quotes. So we are giving double batch BTech Smart class in double quotes, that will be stored in student name. But here what will be the size? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So 15 characters are there, but in this situation what the size is 16, because in case of string there is always a character at the end /0, that is called null character. So this null character will be stored in the array at last as a terminating character. So this terminating character will add to the size. So here size will be 16. That we will again do in strings in the part 2 lecture series. How this array is stored in the memory. If we want to store the array in the memory, so these elements are stored. Now if they will be stored in consecutive memory location. For example, like if I am having one array and this array name is A and starting location is 1001 and it is of type integer. So what will happen if it is an integer array? So what is the size of this? Can anybody answer in the chat box? What will be the size of next element? The size of integer is 4 byte. So what will be the size of next element? You can answer in chat box. I am waiting for your answer. If okay, so what will happen here? One integer will be stored, that is of 4 byte. So next value will be 1001 plus 4. So here this k is what? K is the number of bytes. So this will be 1005 because we have added 4, and by adding this 4 we reach to next location. 4 bytes are required to store one integer value. Next element will be stored from 1005. So we can find like this: x x is there, x is the starting address, base address. Then next will be x plus k, next will be x plus 2k, x plus 3k. So we can say that the formula will be x plus ik. x plus I k. So x is what? X is the base address, I is the nth element, and k is the size of one element. So if I want to find out the size of this, if I want to find out the location or address of this, so can somebody tell me the address of this? You can find out, this will be the 0th index, first index, second index, third index, fourth index and fifth index. So if I want to find the size of A5, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I want to find out the size of A5. So what will be the size of A5? Anybody can answer in chat box if you can find out. So how to find out this? X. So x is what? 1001 plus, what is the index? Index is here 5 into the size. Size of one element is 4. So what will happen? So we are adding 20. So that this will be 1021 will be the size of this. So like this size will be 1009, 1009, its size will be 1013, it will be 1017, and this will be 1021. So this is how you can find the size, because it is being stored in the contiguous memory location. That's why it is possible to find out the size. The length of array. If we know the lower index and upper index, then we can find out the length. So length we can find using upper index minus lower index plus 1. So like if I am having a last element as A5, so what will be the upper limit will be 5, lower limit will be UL minus LL, 5 minus 0 plus 1. So how many elements are there? So basically 6 elements are stored in that kind of array. In C, while assessing these array elements, sometimes we do some mistakes, because C language do not provide any bound checking. Bound checking means the array can be stored beyond its specified size. Like here we have declared the size as 5 and we are storing element at 8th location. So C programming will not provide any error for this, but it is the responsibility of programmer to provide the bound checking or to keep bound checking, because such kind of things will not give any error, but during the execution of program that may create problem, that may terminate your program abruptly, or it can create some kind of exceptions, because there is a possibility that the location where we are storing this, some other element is stored and we are accidentally changing the value of that element. So that may be the possibility of any error. So we need to be sure, or we need to write a logic where we are not exceeding the limit of array. So how we can initialize, that we have already seen. Like these examples we can find useful. Like here integer marks, we have stored this. If the number of values in the list is less than the number of elements, then the remaining elements are automatically set to 0. For example, here float total 5 and we have given 1, 2, 3 elements only, while the size is 5. So what will be the value of total 3 and what will be the value of total 4. So these values will be set to 0. So it will be 0 and it will be 0. Here like total 3 will be 0 and total 4 will be 0. We need to declare the size, but if we are supplying the values directly, then in that situation the size will be fixed according to the supplied values. But if we have declared the size also and we have supplied less number of values, then the remaining values will be set to its default. Like integers and floats will be assigned 0 and the character value will be assigned a null. Null is /0. So the size here declared, if it is less than the elements in the initialization part, then the remaining elements will be ignored, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Only these will be used and this will be ignored, because here the size is only 5. So this is how we can declare and initialize our arrays. What we cannot do, like A and B, if these two are two names, two array names, then we cannot assign one array variable to the array another, like which we can do int A equal to 5 comma B equal to 6, then we can assign A equal to B, and so what will be the value of B will be assigned to A. But if they will become array, if they are array, then we cannot do this. A and B are arrays, so we cannot do this. We cannot use equality operator with arrays. We cannot compare. I hope some of you are known that how and why this is being happen. Like array, like I have already told you that array name refers to the base address. Array name refers to the base address, and so here what we are doing, we are comparing addresses rather than the values. So in such situation we cannot consider these addresses for comparison. We need to compare the values, so that will be done in some other ways. We cannot directly use this equality operator with arrays. With the help of printf and scanf, we cannot use array names directly. That means we cannot print the whole array using printf statement, or we cannot read the whole array using scanf statement. So this kind of work or this kind of thing we cannot do with the arrays. We need to use individual array one by one. So let's try to do some program also. Here I'll try to make you aware how we can declare and initialize these arrays. So let's have one array like we can have an array of size 5. So this is how we can declare an array of size 5. If I want to print this array, then we need to use loop. In the previous session we have already studied how to use loops. So if I want to print it, then I can use like for int I equal to 0, I is less than 5 and I plus plus. Initialization, second part is condition, third part is increment or decrement. So, we have initialized I with 0 because I is referring to the index, and we have already studied that index is always starts from 0. So, we want to start from 0, that is why we used I is less than 5, because the last index will be 4 only. So, we are printing something. So, like if I want to print the values stored in this, to refer one array, what we can use? A of I. So, I is referring to the index. So, here you can see that some random numbers has been displayed. So, these random numbers are being displayed because we have not initialized our array. So, if we have not initialized any element of the array, then in that situation all the elements will be having some garbage value or random value. Now, if we want to declare this, if we want to initialize this, we can initialize here using these curly braces, and we can have some values like 1, 2, 3, 4. So, we have initialized this array, and now if we will run this, so we have stored 4 values, and the fifth values which we have not supplied, it will become 0. We have read the concept, we have discussed the concept that if sufficient values have not been supplied, then the remaining values will be 0. If we use like if we provide only one value, then all the other values will become 0. Okay. If we will not provide any value, then in that situation what will happen? There will be garbage value or random values. So, here we take some values like this. If we take extra, then it will not give error. So, we can give, because array is not having bound checking by its own. So, in that situation what is being done? Near initialization, like what error we have got? We have declared more values. So, in that situation, so this is basically not an error. 1, 3, 4, 7, 9, we have only specific value and the remaining values will be ignored. Now, let's do one thing. Let's have less number of values, and we are using it with A of I. A of I means the I is the index and A is the name of the array element. Now, if we want to check the address of this array element, then in that situation what we can do? We can have address of this ampersand is the address of operator. So, we can have address of ith element, and generally we print the address with the help of p. So, if we print this, so addresses are being printed. If you want to see, these are hexadecimal numbers. You can easily understand using if you uses another format specifier, that is u. So, with the help of u, you can also print the unsigned value. So, here unsigned values have been printed. You can easily check like 24, then 28, then 32, and then 36 and 40. So 4 gap in the addresses, because integer requires 4 bytes to get stored in C. So every address is different. If we print the address of array itself, it's like %u we will be printing it in new line. If I write only A, what will be printed in this situation? The base address of the array. So to print this base address, so you can check the first address is 20 and the base address is also 20. So that's how you can access the addresses of these arrays. Next, in the next lecture, we will cover up strings and 2D arrays. The next class agenda is 2D arrays and string manipulation and some operations on arrays like searching and sorting kind of operations on array elements. So keep learning. If you have any query, anything you want to know, want to discuss, you can write in the chat box. Anybody wants to discuss anything, you can write in the chat box. I am having 10 minutes reserved for your questions if anybody wants to ask something. So let us refresh once again that we have today discussed what is an array. Array is a finite ordered set of homogeneous elements stored in a contiguous memory location. Why we are saying contiguous, not continuous? Because array element is not being stored in the next address, rather it is being stored logically next address. Like if we are storing integers, then the next address will be 4 bytes ahead. If we are storing characters, then the next address will be 1 byte ahead. So in depending on the type of character, the next address will be chosen for storing the value. That's why we are saying that it is being stored in contiguous memory location. Okay, so no queries. Let's have another next session in some coming days. Thank you very much. Thanks all.